Hello, Counterslam fans. So today I'm here to talk about the brand new Tharn Blood Pack for the Circle Orboros. They're a pretty interesting unit, I've found. First off, I'm going to talk a little bit about kind of the models themselves. I think they have a really nice look. They're very large and imposing figures, much like the regular Ravagers, which makes them a pretty cool looking piece in my opinion. I've read about some complaints people have had with the sculpts, how they kind of look all the same. But what I've found myself when putting these things together is actually really modular. So I was actually able to put all of my Ravager or all of my Blood Pack together with poses that are each individual and unique to them. So it does give them a bit of variety. Now I guess I'll go on to talk about kind of what they are and how they work. So first off, they have the standard Tharn Ravager stat line, which means that they're Mat 7. And they are defense 13 and armor 14, which, not the greatest defensive stats, but they do have 8 wounds, so they're relatively tolerant to things like blast damage. I guess the important stats for them, mostly, being that they are a ranged unit, would be their Rat, which is 6. It's a solid number. And their ranged weapon has a power of 13, which is probably the highest power shot on anything that isn't a War Beast that Circle has. Not counting the Celestial Fulcrum, I guess. And that's on a range 12 gun, which is pretty solid. The special abilities that they've got, like all Tharn, like all the male Tharn, the Tharn Ravagers and the White Manes, they also have Tree Hunter, which means that while they're in a forest, not only do they get the standard concealment, +2 defense against ranged attacks, but they also get +2 defense against melee attacks, and they're able to see through forests, so they don't block their line of sight, and they're able to move through any model that's in a forest, as though it weren't there. So this is kind of handy, and occasionally you can use this to surprise an enemy who thinks he's safe behind something. They have, like the other Tharn Ravagers, they have Heart Eater, so if they actually kill something in melee, then they can get a corpse token, and they can use this corpse token to either buy additional melee attacks, or if they find themselves no longer in melee, they can make a ranged attack, and they can use those corpse tokens to boost the attack and damage rolls, which is kind of handy. Although, in my experience, you'll find that they don't often get to use those heart tokens that they collect, because by the time they actually by the time they actually charge in and engage things in melee games, you're at a pretty important, or you're kind of at a point of the game where they're not really going to be moving around a whole lot more. The big ability they've got, what makes them really interesting, is the Assault and Battery Order. So this order allows them to, before they make either their normal movement or their normal action, they are allowed to make a ranged attack against anything within their range. And of course, because this happens before their normal movement, they're not allowed to sacrifice their movement to aim while they're doing this, which is the only real drawback, I think, to this particular order. But anyway, after they make their ranged attack using this order, they are then allowed to either make a charge attack or run. And if they choose to make the charge attack, they are allowed to charge anything they want. They don't have to charge whatever they shot. They can charge something that's closer, something totally, something that's closer, farther away, something totally different, whatever. Or they can run. And being that they're speed 6, that means that they can move 12 inches after shooting, which is really amazing. And I think that's where the main power of this unit lies, is that this Assault and Battery Order allows them to be very mobile. They're able to get quickly up the field, start shooting at the enemy, and then moving backward or off to the side or wherever to prevent being engaged. So some combos that I kind of find that work well with them are basically anything you can do to sort of up their hitting power is always a nice thing. So you take them with somebody like Cassius or Mosar, who has Curse of Shadows. You can throw that on a target that you really want to do a bunch of damage to, and take shots at it, and you get your POW 13 shots at an enemy that has -2 armor. So it makes them effectively POW 15 shots, which is pretty solid. Additionally, Mosar's Mirage ability on them, giving them that 2-inch place at the beginning of at the beginning of your turn, just helps them get that much more maneuverability, and prevents them from getting bogged down too much. They also work really well with Epic Morvana, our newest wonderful warcaster, for a couple of reasons. First, because their guns are range 12. Most of the time when they're shooting at an enemy, they can be far enough away that they are still easily inside of Morvana's control area. So, she can use her Scales of Fate to compensate for the fact that they're only Rat 6 and might miss occasionally, or the fact that they only roll 2 dice on damage and might roll low sometimes. So you can have Morvana cut herself to get some rerolls in there and really make sure that they're living up to their full potential. Other than that, they'll pretty much work with any other caster. Because they are generally self-sufficient. They'll run off to one side and just sort of do their work every turn if you let them. So, my personal experience with them has been that the beginning of the game, like I said, I usually put them off to one side, and they start moving. I try to pick out a target or two that they want, usually a unit that doesn't have absurdly high defense or armor. So anything in the middling defense or armor range is something that's easily hittable by them. They can also go after light warjacks with a decent chance of taking them down. They can even be sent to go after things like heavy warjacks or heavy war beasts, and they will put a fair bit of damage onto them given the chance. They generally won't be able to kill such a target like that in a single round, but they will put enough damage on it that if you send something else after it that same turn or another turn, that you'll be able to bring it down a whole lot more easily. So, like I said, generally they'll pick a target, they'll run off to the side, they'll shoot, they'll move, and typically I prefer to have them move further off to the side or further up. Get them into a position after every time they shoot, have them run to some position that makes the enemy uncomfortable. If you can circle around behind them, then you're doing a good job, and you give them something else to think about. And if your opponent has to turn around and send forces over to go get them, then they've easily paid for themselves. As far as actually using the Assault and Battery Order to charge something, typically I only do that if I think that whatever it is they're about to charge is something they can kill, or if it's something that I desperately need to tie up right then. So it's not something you tend to use all the time, and definitely don't count on them being able to just charge in and decimate an entire unit by themselves, because they don't have reach and they're only power and strength 11, which is solid, but like I said, anything with high armor is going to be able to stand up to their charges. So try to find better targets. They do best when they are mobile and not tied down. So that's where you want them to be. I think that's about all there is to say. I find them to be a spectacular new option for Circle. They're definitely not the end-all, be-all of Circle tech, for sure. And many people will definitely say they still prefer Blood Trackers. But I think these guys perform a bit of a different role. And, they fit very well with this theme of Circle, the hit and move. So if you want to run a real mobile army, these guys are your best bet. Thanks, and I'll see you back in the game.